I encourage people to look at data not in a positive or negative way, but just as facts. This is just how things are. If your conversion rate is really low, that's not a bad thing. That's just a thing. That's just math. So it might mean that you need more at the top of the funnel in order to hit your goals. Great. Or it might mean that's your focus. We've definitely seen that before where, everybody goes immediately to we need more leads. Well, maybe there's a break in the funnel that if you improve that conversion rate by a little bit, that you won't need more leads at all.
Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. Okay, I hit the button and this adventure has begun. We're on that Disney ride and it has left the thing and now the flume is floating around. I'm excited. I can't wait to introduce our guest today. She's a badass. Let's just put it that way. And she is someone to watch, to listen to learn from. And we're just going to get into this. She's an entrepreneur, B2B marketing leader, global thought leader, data nerd, and if that's not all, a podcast host too. She is on the Forbes Communication Council. She is everywhere you can possibly look. Has her own podcast called Marketing Demystified. Was one of the top HubSpot agencies in 2023. CEO and co-founder of Growgetter, Jen Mancusi. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Casey. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited.
I am too. Man, you're busy. You're doing things left and right. I'm excited to kind of scoop you for an hour and be let's learn from you, So I'm going to pass you this thing. It's heavy, but I know you guys are tough down there. So let me pass you this thing. I know the days of HubSpot makes you tough. All right. Here it is. All right. Go ahead. Grab that. Okay, you got it? Okay. All right, Jen, take Thor's hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth, a bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
All right. I don't know if it's quite a myth, but I'll just say that CMOs are getting fired much more quickly than any other role because they're tracking the wrong metrics. This is such a common problem in marketing. And I'd love to dive deeper into that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. What are they tracking? It sounds like you track the wrong thing, you're done. So what are they focusing on?
I think what they're focusing on is they're being forced to defend a scoreboard that is created by non-marketers. And it's the only way that they can kind of defend their own sort of worth or their team's worth. And it's not it's not the thing. It's never the thing that is actually driving revenue or driving real growth. So I always say this, just because you can track it doesn't mean you should. And unfortunately or fortunately, as marketing has evolved over the years and technology has evolved over the years, we have a lot more capability to track different performance metrics. But again, you can track a million different metrics and there's only a few metrics that matter. So I think that we talk all the time about the tenure of the CMO being the shortest in business. And the reason why is that they're being forced to defend that wrong scoreboard, like I mentioned.
Man, I've never heard it put so well, the idea that they're defending a scorecard they didn't even create, right? With metrics that they aren't even in their plan, if they're even planning it. Wow. Yeah. The idea, and especially if you haven't done a good job marketing what marketing is, who knows what people think you do? How many beautiful brochures did you put out last week? How many Instagram likes did we get? And who even knows, right? There'd be some random things. And then they're distracted by it. And we've sort of given up control over that scorecard metrics. We got to take it back.
For sure. I think you're spot on there. I think actually what you just said about marketing, what marketing does, is a big part of that. And, doing a good job of communicating internally and to your stakeholders, well, what's actually going to connect the dots between the marketing strategy and business growth and business objectives, because we hear a lot of, how many followers do we have on LinkedIn or on Instagram or whatever, what's our CPL? CPL is my like kills me every time.
Let's talk about it. CPL and define it for anyone who doesn't know. If you don't know, maybe it's a good thing, but we'll define it.
Maybe it's a good thing. Don't track it. Ignore what I'm about to tell you. Cost per lead. It's, and it's just one of the bigger ones that I think is always in a board deck and always, sort of a core metric for marketing to track. But when in fact it should be CPO, cost per opportunity, because the qualification of those leads is far more important than the volume and the cost of them. So, if you are driving a lot of inexpensive leads, I can do that for you. I can get you a ton of very inexpensive leads if that's what you want. That's not going to drive more revenue for you.
Yeah, like none of them will convert, right? Like you'll get like grandmas and college students who are doing a ton of research and buying nothing.
Exactly. So that in and of itself is just, it's not the thing. It's not the leading indicator that everyone thinks it is. And I shouldn't say everyone. I'm sure there's a ton of really great marketers out there who are thinking about and educating their colleagues on what really matters. Um, but yeah, CPL's not it. Followers are not it. And maybe there is a specific objective that your business has in mind, and it's about awareness and it's about engagement, and that's really key for your business, and that's great. You should be tracking those metrics. But I find that there's the metrics that actually drive growth. And then there's the metrics that you need to track as a marketer to make sure that you're doing better marketing, right? Email open rates and click through rates. You've got to track that stuff because you want your email to perform better. Great. But that being like a primary goal of the CMO or of the marketing department is what often is, marketing teams are just set up to fail. You're set up to fail at that point because you can hit all the metrics that are set out for you, that scorecard that you didn't create. And at the end of the day, if you're not helping your company grow revenue wise or getting more efficient with spend, then none of it matters.
Oh, that's so huge. And the separation of metrics that drive the growth and then metrics that are just like your housekeeping. Like I just got to make sure we're doing good, that we don't have anything, we've got web traffic, we're not preventing the spiders from crawling it, where emails are going out. But man, how often do we flip that and we report those metrics? I was just talking to a guy today on the call, like an hour ago. He's a sales guy, and he's like, I feel like my marketer's speaking Greek to me. And I was like, dude, if your marketer, like, then you should get a different marketer, because like we shouldn't sound like we're speaking a totally different language. We should be speaking your language.
Yeah, for sure. And there is that sort of like the stuff that marketers care about and should care about, and then what you communicate with your colleagues and your team members, the stuff they care about. And that is marketing's job, is to make your cold calls a little bit warmer, or to, move people further down the funnel. People are doing research 80% of the way there before they want to talk to a salesperson. So, it is marketing's job to get people ready to buy. But there's a lot of stuff that's happening that maybe others in the organization aren't going to understand or aren't going to care about, and we're still reporting on it. And I think it goes back to that, we have the ability to track. We can see the traffic. We can see how long people spend on a particular page on the website. But if people are spending a lot of time on a certain page on the website, maybe they're confused. Maybe you haven't done a good job of communicating what you do. So, there's so many, so much other context that needs to be set, and a real like, hey, let's talk about the 2 or 3 things that actually matter versus the just long list of things that we can track. It creates a story. It can be very easy, I'll say, to tell a very good or bad story depending on what metrics you're looking at. Maybe you have a lot of followers on LinkedIn. Great. So there's some false hope there.
Right. So how was your sales goal? Great. Like, yeah. And you mentioned that time on page stat, which I hate. That's like, to me, that's my CPI. Just, ugh. And people are like, oh, our time on page went up or down. Like, what does that even mean? To your point, maybe they're confused. Hey, maybe it took them longer to find what they need. Good for you. Like, well, that's not a success. Like, that's such a false metric. And it kind of reminds me of like my like old grandmothers telling me all the medicine they're on. Like, I don't need to know how the cookies were made, like, and so there's certain things like, hey, marketing, let's keep some of our stats to ourselves and make sure we use them, but then use the right stats with everyone else. Why do you suppose we end up in this situation?
I think there's just um there's a lot of marketing that just happens for marketing's sake, and a lot of disconnect and sort of silos between departments. So we lose track of shared metrics. I also think that like marketing attribution and just general revenue attribution modeling has created a culture of like who gets credit for revenue. And so everybody, sales, business development, marketing, are feeling a need to prove that they generated XYZ traffic or XYZ revenue, when in fact it's a combination of things. Nobody is like getting on a website and, oh my gosh, this website was just so great that I made a purchase. At least let me clarify B2B enterprise sales, right? If we're talking about, you know, a consumer product, a face cream or something, then maybe they are buying off an Instagram ad. I sure am. But in most cases, they're doing a lot of research first. They're engaging with a lot of different content. They're talking to different people. There's a lot of touch points. And so I think there's been a movement more recently over the last few years where companies that can do a better job of establishing shared success metrics and shared goals across teams are doing a lot better, where it's less about this is a marketing attributed, you know, success versus the sales attributed success. It's actually everyone's success. And also now you have teams that are working towards the same goal, as opposed to marketing's trying to get more followers on LinkedIn and sales is trying to get more phone calls. And when we see those things actually come together and, aligned, then you're going to see a lot more. Marketing is going to perform better, campaigns are going to perform better, and sales is going to have faster sales cycles and higher conversion rates, all of the things you want.
How do you move in this direction to doing this the right way, moving into tracking what needs to happen?
So I think it's probably a combination of things, and it depends on who you're talking to, right? If you're the leader of a business and you've got marketing and sales reporting into you, I think you have a really good opportunity to create a culture of collaboration, and you set those shared objectives and there's those shared goals. I tend to anchor on like, here's the three things that matter to me most for this business, and I reinforce that to the entire team all the time. These are the three things. Are you thinking about this, that, and that? This, that, and that. And then anytime we're making a decision on a smaller, more tactical item, we're going back to how does this impact the top three metrics that we're going after as a business? And that's shared across the entire team. Now, if you're a marketer and you're trying to create this alignment, then you need to get with your salesperson and get on the same page with them. Same with if you're on the sales side, you need to get together with your marketer, create this, ongoing collaboration and communication so that you're working in the same direction, and be honest with each other. Hey, we don't have what we need from you. Let's work together on that. Or, we're working on different, we've got different definitions of an ideal customer. So maybe we need to align on that and create some metrics around, getting better qualified leads, not just more, not just cheaper. So I think there's a lot of collaboration that needs to happen, and it can either come down from the top or, sort of cross functionally.
And man, wrangling all that and coordinating, getting everyone to sort of like be aligned and on the same page has got to be a challenge. And I know, Growgetter, you're even this outside party coming in and sort of helping orchestrate that. Any tips for how you get all these different cats to all line up and, do
Yeah.
the can? Like, how do you make that happen?
It's hard. It's not always easy. I think we always start with the business objective. What is the and all businesses are going to have multiple objectives, right? But there's going to be two or three things. If we tend to operate in an OKR structure. I know companies have different ways of doing it, but what are the key business OKRs? And then we create marketing OKRs that directly align to each of the objectives. What are the key results, marketing results that drive the business objectives? A lot of times there's just a little bit of simple math that needs to happen. So we might say, hey, the goal is, new business and, X percentage of new business revenue should come from existing accounts, whatever, however you want to structure it. So then we want to do some looking at the historics, like what's the data inputs? What are the conversion rates for those two different cohorts? What's the sales cycle? What's the ACV? What's been the customer acquisition cost to date? Then we can set some goals. Well, based on this historic data and your current definition of a qualified lead, this is how many we need per month. And then you can start to build a strategy to bring in those leads. And maybe it's more awareness and brand focused. Maybe it's more demand capture focused. Maybe it's more customer expansion or customer engagement focused. But just starting with that top business goal and objective, looking at the data, doing some math. I encourage people to look at data not in a positive or negative way, but just as facts. This is just how things are. If your conversion rate is really low, that's not a bad thing. That's just a thing. That's just math. So it might mean that you need more at the top of the funnel in order to hit your goals. Great. Or it might mean that's your focus. We've definitely seen that before where, everybody goes immediately to we need more leads. Well, maybe there's a break in the funnel that if you improve that conversion rate by a little bit, that you won't need more leads at all. You actually will, you could get away with fewer leads because you've improved that one moment. So, that was my very long way of saying, like, understand the business objectives and do some math, look at the data, see what your current state is, and figure out what levers you're going to pull and what marketing can do to contribute to whatever it is that you need to achieve.
Yeah, like the strategy is just all around this conversation. I love it because I think so often we get so tactical, we get distracted by this tactic and that, but idea like let's line up. Where's the business trying to accomplish? Okay, now how can we support that? Have you ever seen? You mentioned OKRs. Have you seen OKRs just at a departmental level, or does that tend to in being like a company wide level?
Oh, so I like to do both. So business OKRs and the marketing team OKRs, like separately, but side by side. And I think what that helps to do is anchor people on what it is you're trying to achieve, because that's what creates that disconnect is if they're not aligned. Again, let's say new logo achievement is the primary objective for the business, and then marketing is being measured on email open rates. Well, connect the dots for me. Connect the dots for me on how those email open rates are going to impact new logos. Maybe they are. Maybe we've made some sort of decision that we determine that is going to be the thing that drives new logo business, and that's fine, but it has to be connected. So I think that teams and individuals need to have measurable, smart goals, and they all need to ladder up to the business objective. And the better you can do of like communicating with the individuals who are doing the work, what those objectives are and how their day to day impacts those bigger goals, I think the more engaged everyone is. It also, like, I find that if you're really, really prescriptive about those goals and about those key results, it creates a lot of freedom actually to be creative and to play, which I is my favorite thing about marketing. If we're all on the same page about what success looks like for the business, then like you said, we get tactical, we get really focused on like, hey, we got to, improve our LinkedIn strategy or our very specific tactical approach. Well, none of that actually matters if you're measuring things and you get the freedom to try things, try something new, take a little bit of a risk. And if you're measuring it effectively and you know exactly what success looks like, you cut off the thing that doesn't work really quickly and you expand on and invest in the things that have a little bit of promise. I think when you're too focused on tactics, you end up and the wrong metrics, you end up turning off campaigns that are working and spending a lot of money on stuff that's not.
So true. I feel like there are, sometimes we struggle in podcast conversations. You know this as a podcaster. It's like, what's the aha moment? Where do the clips come from? I feel like there are just thousands of them from this conversation so far. Uh, but the idea of not having the goal in mind and then, cool, here's your best campaign ever that you accidentally just turned off. And you
Yes.
have no idea. You have no idea that you just did that.
You're measuring the wrong thing. Measuring the wrong thing. I see that all the time. Top of funnel awareness campaigns that are performing brilliantly and they don't get conversion, right? Well, maybe they weren't designed to get conversion. They're designed to build awareness and you just turned it off. And that impacting your sales down the funnel or what's that next step? You just needed another step in the journey for them and all of a sudden that was going to explode or some alignment on the audience if the sales team was going after that same audience at the same time that that campaign was running, but actually they were working on something else entirely during that time. There's just so many opportunities that get missed. And so getting the metrics right, aligning on the metrics that matter and making sure they actually connect to business objectives, then you are going to make better decisions on that stuff and you're going to have more success.
Jen, I think you need a book. Are you writing one? Do you have one?
I am writing a book, but it's not about marketing. Maybe I should write a marketing book.
And are you writing like like fiction?
Like a memoir. Now it's public. Now everybody knows.
Murder mystery in Connecticut kinda thing?
Murder mystery. I mean, I could probably write that book too.
Well, anyone who drives in Connecticut has almost been in a murder mystery, so I would say, especially that highway into New York, oh my gosh. But yeah, okay, so yeah, but have you thought of writing like a marketing strategy book?
Well, maybe I will.
I feel like you need to because I've talked to a lot of people, but I feel I almost like Jedi, the strategy is strong with this one. Like I get the sense that you have a very clear understanding of it, but also that you're able to communicate it well enough to get the most ornery CEO and C-suite person to come. Okay, well, I have a friend. Let me bounce this off you. I have a friend, marketing leader in a company, and the CEO is like a dev. He's a smart guy, but not a marketer. And he has said, "I don't want you to do any marketing programs that don't directly lead to a sales qualified lead." Is he right? And what do you say to them?
So I think that there's a couple of different approaches you can kind of take. First, you need to be able to demonstrate how the sales qualified leads come in, or I just say qualified lead. I don't like marketing and sales to have different definitions of qualified lead. How they sort of come in and sort of explain the journey. I think that, brand is directly correlated to demand, but people sometimes separate those. So brand efforts will lead you there. Now, in the past in my career, I've had to get demand generation working to give myself a little bit of freedom to play with brand, right? Sometimes you just have to do that. You have to do exactly what the CEO is asking for, which is drive qualified leads. And then you can say, you know what, I'm going to use some of this budget for some demand and I'm going to for some brand work. And I'm going to show you how it actually lowers our acquisition cost on those leads, right? I'm going to show you how it shortens our sales cycle because when those leads get to sales, then they're more qualified. Or I'm going to show you how the conversion rate for the business development team that's doing cold outreach increases when we do brand work because the people that they're reaching out to have heard of us as opposed to it being a completely cold call. So you have to connect the dots between some of the brand efforts, and I like to call it demand capture, not demand generation. I think actually brand awareness strategy is demand generation. You are generating demand for your brand and then you are capturing it. That's the conversion step. Um, so I think sometimes you have to, I don't think you can effectively do demand capture without a strong brand. Um, but sometimes you're forced to, get that right. And then that gives you a little bit more space and a little bit of trust. But back to what you said way at the beginning of this conversation is there's an internal marketing education that needs to happen. And you have to be comfortable enough to say, you got to trust me here. This is how it's going to work most effectively. I'm going to do what you're asking me to do, but it's going to make that a lot more efficient and perform better if we can invest in, getting our positioning right and improving our website or, fill in the blank.
Man, that is sound advice that I will share with her if she's not already listening. And then I don't know if why have I not heard this before? The idea of like brand is actually demand generation. And then what we're calling demand is actually demand capture. That's brilliant. Did you invent that?
I don't think so. I'm sure I heard somebody say it somewhere along the line and adopted it as my own.
Well, maybe that's the book. And then you just be like, I'm sorry, I don't know who mentioned it, but
Yeah, I mean, story of my life, right? Like we learn from each other over the years and I don't think I've created anything new or unique to me, right? But some combination of things and I think like over the years there's been a shift from, there used to be this focus on lead generation. Marketing equals lead generation, which never was the case in my opinion, but even less so now. I don't think lead generation is a thing. It is demand generation. You have to generate demand. You can't just generate leads. But I think that brand is so critical. Getting your positioning right, getting your brand story right, communicating your values, being purpose driven, giving people a reason to engage with, and then building awareness on who you are. They need to know who you are. Um, is so critical for demand generation. You can't have demand generation without brand. So, in my opinion, that's what it is. And when you're actually that conversion moment, which is the thing everybody wants, that is capturing it. You can create all that demand, then you got to be in the right place at the right time to capture it. And that's the qualified lead. So, that's just how I think about it.
well, get you the transcript from this podcast and that'll be chapter 1. Like, this is fantastic. Even the idea of I believe you. You're like, Legion isn't a thing. And I'm like, well, I guess you're right. It isn't. It's the same thing where I always complain about people using webinars as a source. And I'm like, well, they didn't magically find out about the webinar. Like, how did they find out about it? You're like, we just held one and they just miraculously came to it from faraway places. The same thing that lead didn't just sort of been like, I'm here, I'm a lead. It's like, well, where did they come from? And how did you create that demand in them? Brilliant, brilliant. Where do you like to learn from?
I love to listen to podcasts. I was going to say read books, but I tend to do my business books on audio. Um, so I'm a big like dog walk and listen to my business books on 2x speed.
You're a 2Xer? You can do that?
Sure, yeah. I move too fast. I can't, whenever I listen to something on like regular speed, I'm like, why are they talking so slow?
Okay, that's the real torture. And like, how do they even talk so slow? I mean, I know we're in New England, but still, like one speed. I'm like, this is actually terrible. And there's some books and some even some fiction that I've listened to where and because the pitch of the voice changes as you speed it up a little. I don't know if that's the Doppler effect, but like it changes. And so I'm used to a certain pitch where I'm like, oh yeah, this is my favorite narrator. But yeah, so 2X though, that's impressive. But if somebody asks you a question or like something happens, you're distracted by one moment, you've missed like a quarter chapter, and so you're like, rewind, rewind.
I might be walking the dog and just watching the trees and, some of it comes in and some of it doesn't, but I do love to, listen to an audiobook or podcast. And I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn as well and just like reading people's newsletters and different content that they're putting out. I actually haven't done this in a long time, but maybe after this conversation I will. I used to block out time on my calendar to scroll on LinkedIn because it feels a little bit like lazy, right? Like you're scrolling on social media, you're doing something you're not supposed to do.
Doom scrolling.
Yeah, but actually it's so valuable, and kind of carving out time and giving myself permission to read what people are talking about in your industry, in your space. It's actually really valuable. I've learned a lot there, and even some Twitter content tends to, I learned something from it. That's where the latest and the newest and the most current on SEO and GEO and AIO, all that stuff is, and, you know, industry updates. So I like to set aside some time to actually dedicate to that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. On the book or pod side, though, do you have anything you're listening to now that you recommend?
Ooh, let's see. I just recently finished reading Essentialism, which is a great, that was recommended to me by someone else I respect a lot. So I would highly recommend that. Um, let's see. What else did I read recently? I should have come more prepared with some ideas.
No, that's fine. Do you use Audible or what's your favorite? Yeah, have you know I don't know if you've ever looked, but when it tells you the number of books, if you've done it for a couple years, those things, they add up and you're like, "Wait, I have 180 or 200. How do I have that many books?" But, like, you do, and wow, but yeah, I think I actually have Essentialism, I just haven't read it yet, so this is, like, a good reminder to me. Go read it, dude? It's like a little, marketing funnel. It's like the books that I've bought, and then the ones that I actually start, and then the ones that I read and finish.
That's so funny. It is like an audiobook funnel. I love that.
Book funnel, and, it's okay that they don't all make it through.
That is okay. Yes.
If they don't, they just don't. Well, my next question really is like, who are you? Who are you? I've had such a great strategic conversation with you here on this pod. Take me back in time. Little Jen days. Did you know you're going to be a marketing leader, thought leader, teaching people, guiding companies to being much more strategic with their marketing?
This is what I dreamed about as a little girl. But no, no, but you know what? I used to tell people when I was little that I was going to be an author and an illustrator, and maybe I am. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm a storyteller, and I'm not. It's taken a little bit of a different form, but no, I didn't know what marketing was until I was already doing it, and I went to college for I was pre-law and I was studying communications. I wanted to be in entertainment. And I dropped out of school after my sophomore year of college because I was like, I don't want to do this at all. I have no idea what I want to do. And I got a job. I started working and got a job as a marketing assistant. I didn't know what marketing was. I had never studied it. I didn't, know what it entailed. And I loved it and I took to it really quickly. And so when I went back to school at night to complete my bachelor's degree, I double majored in marketing. And which is interesting now looking back. I mean, I was like coding websites in HTML back. Like it's so marketing is so different now. There was no Facebook, there was no smartphones, there was no iPhone, right? So there's just so much that's different. But what I learned was how to measure and track success. I learned data. And so that really set me up for kind of like future proofing, I guess, a very rapidly changing industry. But yeah, I didn't know what marketing was until I was already doing it. And then I fell in love with it. And turns out I was okay at it.
Yeah, dang, okay. Sometimes it's those kinda journeys like that where it's just like, it kinda reminds you what's important, you know? And then you actually care that much more, and then you do great at it. You gotta find that thing that you actually love, otherwise you just kinda yeah. I mean, imagine just being like a entertainment lawyer right now, just kinda, like, hating life, like, how lame would that be, you know?
So many contracts to read.
Ugh. Well, there's contracts when you're an entrepreneur too, but thankfully not as many. At least it's not your day job to read them. It's like a nice thing. "Oh, if I read this contract, maybe I'll get a new client. Okay, I'll read it," you know?
All right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
My next question then is, like, with what you're doing now, who do you work with? Growgetter, right? Is a company. You're doing marketing strategy. What kind of companies do you work with? How do you help them? What do you do?
Yeah, great question. So, we're primarily B2B. I shouldn't say primarily, exclusively B2B. And so we work with companies, sort of big and small, but oftentimes don't have a in-house marketing division or are short on marketing resources internally. So essentially what we're doing is building an outsourced marketing team for you. That could include myself as a fractional CMO. We have a content team that does blog writing and social media management and email. We have an account team that runs paid advertising and campaigns and marketing attribution. We do a lot of RevOps and CRM work. We're HubSpot partner, you mentioned at the beginning. And so it's sort of as much or as little as you need based on your internal resources. We work sometimes directly with a CMO who needs us to support on the content or advertising side. Sometimes we work directly with a CEO or a CRO of, say, like a Series A startup who doesn't have a team yet, but needs to ramp up quickly, doesn't have time to hire internal resources. So that's really our focus.
And people will definitely want to reach out. We'll have all the information in the show notes. But my next question for you is a hypothetical question. Are you ready for this?
I don't know. Am I?
Here it comes. So, I may or may not have a time machine up here in New Hampshire. So, next time you're doing an event in Boston, customer event, or maybe they bring inbound back to Boston, knock, knock, HubSpot. Um, Something happened, and you drive a little bit up right here in Nashville. You come visit. It's in the backyard, covered in a tarp, right? So we go use this time machine, but it's a particular kind of a time machine. You get to go visit yourself a couple days after graduating from college, right? Then, or if you want, you can switch the button and talk to yourself a little bit out after dropping out that first time, and you get a chance to talk to yourself. What do you say?
If it was after my graduation, I was already working full time. And at this point, I'm like several years older than the people I was walking with. And that felt really crappy at the time, like I was behind or had done something wrong. But what I would say to her now is like, this is going to be your biggest advantage, actually, that you learned on the job, that you studied something that you loved when you knew that you like really cared about it, and it's going to set you up for, you have a different, it's okay to have followed a slightly different path because that's going to work in your favor long term. And then maybe I would say the same thing when I was dropping out and panicking about like, what am I going to do with my life, at 19, 20 years old. It's okay if you're 19 or 20 and you have no idea what you want to do with your life. I mean, I'm still figuring it out now. Working at different companies for different types of marketing companies. I haven't always been B2B, but finding startups, becoming an entrepreneur, none of this was planned. So, I guess just don't worry. Like everything is going to work out the way it's supposed to. There's no such thing as accidents in the universe, in my opinion. And yeah, roll with it.
Roll with it. Yeah. What an adventure it turns into when you do, huh? Man. And I can totally see that being an advantage. It can definitely be weird, but then you're just that much more aware of what's going on. And also, I mean, it's that real world knowledge of why we're even learning this in the first place. Where some people are like, I don't know, why am I learning this? But it's almost like going back to school after having a business. You're like, okay, here's what I actually need to know about finance.
Right. Totally. Well, I think everything I learn is actually like you kind of have to be open to learning all the time. I think especially as a marketer, I actually think that sometimes experience can work against you because of how quickly marketing tactics and channels change and technology changes and approaches change and people, society, humans change. So the more you as a marketer are doing things the way you learned it 10 years ago, the you're it's too late, right? You're doing it wrong. So if you can stay open to learning while you're, especially as you have more experience, like lean into the tried and true things, like how to measure, like how to answer that question of so what? Why are we doing this? what is the purpose of this thing that we're doing? That's the stuff that experience will help you with. But the more tactical stuff, you have to be open to learning and discovering and experimenting. Otherwise, you're going to miss out.
Man, again, another vote for having a book.
Thank you. You'll be my editor. I need you to edit it.
Totally, totally. No, we just do it. We just do, 11 more podcasts and just transcribe the whole thing and you're done, right? Um, yeah, wow, like, so true. It's a little scary thinking about how things change all the time, and part of me is like, "Oh, that sucks. I just got really good at email marketing, and now it just totally changed." But in a way, it's also kind of fun and fresh because it is changing, and you do get to try something new and but keep up with it and and keep learning. Otherwise, you are out of here. You're old school. Um, Amazing. So, where can people reach out if they want to connect?
Yeah, totally. Find me on LinkedIn. You can get in touch with me on our website on growgetter.io. Um, and yeah, I mean, those are probably the easiest places to find me. Listen to the podcast for sure. We're on Spotify, Apple, all the good spots.
That's marketing demystified, right?
Yeah, Marketing Demystified. If you follow us on LinkedIn or subscribe to our YouTube channel, we broadcast all of our episodes live every week, so you can get it early. Comment while we're talking, and we'll talk back to you.
Wow, live, live. That's cool.
It's fun, yeah. We love a live stream. You can listen back to when we had Casey on our live a couple months ago, I guess.
Crazy, crazy. So, and when people reach out, they should definitely not be a weirdo and just say hi, but like, hey, I heard you on the pod, right? Let's all be marketers here and attribute our sources. Yeah, definitely go reach out. Man, Jen, this has been, like, amazing to chat with you. I mean, I feel like I float in marketing strategy all day, completely take it for granted, but I feel like I had, like, just an absolute refresh and almost like an update too, to help keep me from being, like, the old school marketer. So, like, I really appreciate you coming on here, the different things it meant. You actually shattered like multiple myths. As I know at the beginning, we're like, oh, what are we going to say? But like, man, you shattered stuff at the beginning, but then even just like, there is no lead gen. It doesn't even exist. You were just smashing stuff left and right. So thank you for coming on here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I always love chatting with you, so appreciate it.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And for those listening, if you learned something, I freaking know you did because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back. I ran out of room in the bottom and the edges. So if you're like me, share this with someone else. One person, 9 people, 3,000 is cool. But even one person, like who needs to hear this? Are you drowning in the wrong metrics? Either your leadership is throwing them at you, maybe you're doing the scorecard that you didn't even create. Like get this information to other marketers' hands so that they can fix these things. OKRs, so many good things in here. Definitely, share this with your coworkers, your office, so that we're all on the same page. And with that, man, Jen, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. This has been a crazy cool, very exciting episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will see you all next time.